Welcome to the Equipcast for the Archdiocese of Omaha. Designed to help leaders to transform their cultures, to embody the pastoral vision, to be one church, encountering Jesus, equipping disciples, and living mercy. Equipcast number 12. I'm Father Jeff Lorig. I'm joined by my co-host, which he got an official title now, Jim Jansen. And if you're live with us today, we want to encourage you to use the chat room. So ask questions, make comments, meet some new people. We love it when you ask a question. It's just, it's fun, but it also, it's a way in which you can use your influence to shape the conversation. And we would also love it if you just go ahead and you can check in where you're from, what parish. I already put that on there. We have people from St. Columkill, St. James, St. Ledger's, Mary Queen, St. Ledger's, St. Stephen's. So thank you, those of you who have checked in and are joining us with this live version of Equipcast. We record our Equipcast live every Friday at 3:30 Central Time. And so you probably just go ahead and put a placeholder in your calendar for yourself, and Jim has to do it. And so you can go ahead and plan on this conversation lasting about 30 to 45 minutes. If you're not able to join us live in the future, you can always subscribe to the podcast. It's all official now. It's on Apple and Stitcher and Google Play. It's everywhere it should be. So just search Equipcast, one word, on your preferred podcasting platform. And if you want to go crazy, you can leave a comment. And we don't plan to get rich and famous from this, but if it wouldn't hurt.
But if it happens by accident, we're okay with that.
Right. And if it wouldn't, but it wouldn't hurt. Just go ahead and leave a comment to help others find what you find helpful on these podcasts. So you can never miss an update if you subscribe not only to the podcast, but subscribing to our website, and that's you can find that at equip.archomaha.org. You get all the goods there, so you can just subscribe that, and then we'll show up in your inbox whenever we make an update to that website. So it's also where you'll be able to find show notes for this show, as well as past episodes. You also see the future episode registrations. We do registrations for this because we have to do it through Zoom and to kind of so we don't get porn bombed or anything, or worse. I don't know, it could be worse or whatever. We just don't want strangers to come in. So it's nice that we know who's all on here, and we're glad you're here. And we also, not only do we do this podcast, but we also do some blog posts as well. So this last week, wrote an article about budget meetings. I know, which is exciting, but they were heavy and hard, but they were also very clarifying for me. So that's why I wanted to talk about it and share it. And hopefully that was helpful to other folks going through the same process. I know Father Leo from St. Matthew's in Bellevue shared it on his Facebook page, and he really got a lot out of it. That's kind of the ultimate win when a pastor says, "Oh my gosh, that was great, loved it," and then maybe even shares it with his finance council. And so that is where we're at today, and all the things you need to know for us to get started. And today's topic has to do with the ideal parishioner. And I asked Jim Jansen the other day, who cares about this? Which priest is really asking? It's I wish I knew what the ideal parishioner was, and I was really challenging him to say, well, what's the felt need here? Why is this what's the hook? Tell me why this is so important.
Well, I mean, everywhere we go, pastors, lay leaders, staff, everybody is often you don't have to work too hard to get people to say, well, actually, I'm kind of tired. Why is it always the same people volunteering for everything? It's always the same people. It's just us. We can't get people to step up. And I think at the root of this is really our notion of what it means to be, right, to be the ideal or the perfect parishioner. So, Father, I want to turn this around on you. You've been a pastor, right? You've had responsibility for this. What's the ideal parishioner in your mind? Is it just somebody who shows up at everything? Is there a certain financial threshold?
It's Linda Asher.
True.
I know she's the one person kind of sitting here in my video on my screen, so that's why I would say that. No, Linda Asher would be a great example of that. I had this conversation with Father Gruey, who is our vicar general. He's our pastor at Cathedral. That's where I live. And it was a fun dinner conversation. And he did not describe the ideal parishioner, he named a person. And so I don't want to embarrass that person, but he immediately gravitated like, oh, it's that person. So it's not like it's sort of this abstract thought. It's this is real stuff that he experiences. And so this person at our parish at Cathedral is not on staff, yet runs our Discovering Christ. She did it voluntarily. She wants more for the church. She wants more people to encounter Jesus. She has actually, if you met her, you would think, oh, she's just a good person and she's really nice. But what she is doing, she ran Alpha last year. This year that they decided as a parish to do Discovering Christ. And but then Father Gruy also just said it's not just that they lead things. She gave us cake for Easter. So there's a generosity. Nice. There's a not just that people are generous, but there's an awareness of our relationship, that she doesn't just work for us. She doesn't work, that she loves her priests. And that's not, a qualification, but we feel supported by her and we support her. And so it's just that finding the way in which you can be an influence, and people just basically like this woman just saying, I know I can make a difference. And I that's the person. I think that's what you want a lot of people to be able to do that. That's the ideal parishioner in my mind.
Right. Well, there's a person. I love there's a personal element there in that there's this relationship. But I love what you highlighted. Like part of what she does is she's sharing in the mission of the parish. I mean, shout out to Father Gruy in these times. It's really easy for us to kind of get into survival mode. But Father Gruy has been one of those pastors who has, it's the writings of like all the last popes and really, the teaching of Vatican II that our parishes are supposed to be little missional outposts, right? That Father, you said this before, right? Our parishes exist, at least in part, for their non-members. Sometimes we get so focused in on ourselves that we forget that the whole point of our parishes are to be little outposts, missional outposts that are supposed to bring the kingdom of God to cities and towns and neighborhoods. And I love how the one thing other than cake, right, that was highlighted about this parishioner was that she was sharing in the overall mission of the parish to reach out to the community, to make disciples.
And I should also say that she shared sausage too from a locker,
a
meat locker.
Oh, yeah.
That smell of a meat locker, there's got a certain smell to it. And it doesn't smell like Baker's or Hy-Vee or Walmart where you get all this crappy meat.
Different. It's like the butcher paper and the...
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that certainly helped as well. But no, so as I contemplate someday, God willing, maybe I'll be a pastor again. I've had a lot of time to think about it and enjoyed my time in Creighton, Nebraska at St. Ledger's. But the one phrase that keeps sticking, so I kind of create mission statements. Every morning I read, because that's what I do best. I read and I study and I think about how I can apply these things in the future. My input has some output. So as I read, there's this one phrase that I wrote down that seems to be sticking. So I'll go back to it. And I went back to it this morning. And the phrase is sort of like the mission vision statement of the parish. And it's to unleash the gospel in the people of God to reach more people. It's something like that.
Yeah.
And, but the whole idea is that it's not about like the organizational structure. It's basically about creating ideal parishioners,
right,
who let the gospel be unleashed in them and through them to reach more people.
Well, right, I love that because you're rooting what it means to be an ideal parishioner in kind of a rediscovered identity of parish. I mean, here's the sad part, right? So why does this apply to us? Like, who cares? It was like, well, if you feel in your religious education program, in your youth ministry program, in your parish in general, if you feel all alone, if you're like, yeah, I'm the only one, we can't get anybody to help and support, why is it always the same people? I think the root of that sickness, and it's common, is we've defined our parish mission too narrowly. And when we define our parish mission too narrowly, and it's all about self-preservation, and it's just about taking care of ourselves, what we accidentally do is we've defined the ideal parishioner as simply a consumer. And when we unintentionally send the message that this place is all about consumption, this is all about what you get and not what you give, then people respond that way. And I think it's, there's a whole like communal rediscovery. It's like, what, we exist for others. We've been remade in an image where we actually have a mission that is way beyond this community, because this community hasn't been called together just for itself. It's been called together for the sake of others.
I often think about it as like a membership to like Amazon or Costco. Like we talk about membership in the church, in our parishes, and so we often, I think, because we're great American consumers, and I think our economy is begging us to do more consuming so we can get things rolling again. So we're good at that. If we got a little cash, we'll spend it. Makes us feel good and all that good stuff. But I think we sometimes translate our American consumerism or American membership to Costco or Amazon into the way in which I approach church. So when we become a member of the church, it's not because I get all this stuff. It's more like I become an employee of the church.
Well, it's kind of like enlisting in the army.
Yeah. Like when you join this church, it's not because you're going to get stuff. It's because you're going to go do stuff. You're going to get stuff for sure.
Yeah, you do. But like when you join the army, you get stuff too. Mm-hmm. But all that cool gear you get when you join the army has a purpose. It has a purpose and a mission that's bigger than than just the army itself. I mean, I love that. Yeah.
So I often think there's not a lot of pastors listening. Because they're busy trying to figure out how they're going to open up their churches again. And
everybody's out there with tape measures in the sanctuary right now, like figuring out how far apart they need to stand.
I often think like this. So this is a question about ideal parishioner. So I've certainly sat around and thought about it. I had a great dinner conversation about it. We've talked about it. But is this podcast, what we're talking about, could this also serve as a formation opportunity for the people listening?
Yeah. So I'll give an example here of I think one of my examples, again, real person, right, of a ideal parishioner. I think about a woman named Chris Berkey. Before I came to Omaha, we were friends in the parish I was at before, and she actually works at the med center. She's a nurse practitioner, runs a clinic. Runs a wound care clinic for people with like really intense wounds. So that's like, if you're reading between the lines, she has a really intense, gross job. People who can't heal because of, some other underlying condition or something else. She's an expert in that. And she is a medical missionary. Her card just says nurse practitioner, clinic director. But what she does is she brings the gospel to her nurses and to her patients. And it's not because she's a super extrovert and she's preaching all the time. It's because she does stuff only because of God's power, like living in her life, because some of the stuff is just really gross. She does that through God's power. And her fellow nurses marvel. I can't believe you were so patient. That guy was such a jerk. I can't believe it. And what she does is she brings the gospel into the lives of these patients, into her coworkers. In some ways, she's the ideal parishioner, because she's like this little apostle from her parish into the med center. And I've often thought, like, man, wouldn't it be cool if our parishes would start to think about, like, where's our mission field? And some of that, of course, is going to be geographic. But what if we started to think of our mission field based off the particular places where God is carrying our members? Like, what if we measured the impact and the size of our churches? What if we measured that not so much by our seating capacity, but our sending capacity, our ability to actually get people into the lives of others who need the good news?
Yeah, we were, oh gosh, right before we closed everything down. So I don't know. I can't remember how long ago that was, a month ago, whatever. I just remember being at a meeting with the Global Leadership Summit leaders from Omaha. So I got a chance to be with like Pastor Mark Ashton from Christ Community Church and Pastor Les Beecham from Lifegate. And then there's some other pastors there. They're part of they're not part of the same denomination, but part of the same values called Within Reach. And so if you don't know this yet, if you're listening, you're like, oh, what are so these are basically evangelical churches, but they're just kicking butt. Like they have a long history here, but there's tremendous engagement from the people that come there, and they do amazing works throughout Omaha. And and that's not to take anything away from what we do in our parishes. We certainly do amazing things, but so they just asked the question of what are you guys dreaming of for your churches? And I remember one of the guys, might have been Pastor Les, I'm not sure. He just said, I am just dreaming that the kingdom would have so much reach through every person that knows Jesus, that Jesus would become famous wherever they go.
Yeah, but right, because of this person.
Yeah. Let's make Jesus famous.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's like Chris Berkey's story. She shows up at these like professional conferences and just in her everyday job, and there's something so exceptional happening in her life that, I mean, literally God is glorified by that. And man, does every profession need that.
Now, do married couples, this is not on our script, not that we really are following a script, quite honestly. Do married couples think about the ideal wife? I remember when I was a teenager, we used to talk about, the ideal girl. Oh, yeah. And right now it's too late for you, right? You've already found the ideal woman, right?
Yeah. I was like, no, don't say too late. Say you've already won the game. Yeah. I mean, I think part of it is like, it's back to this, like, well, what's the purpose? I mean, I remember I'll confess, I played the same game as a young man, imagining, what the ideal girl or woman or wife would be. And man, when I misdefined the purpose of marriage, when I thought it was just about, when I thought it was just about kind of like a superficial happiness, like all the things on my list, they change when you actually get into marriage, and hair color and eye color and height matter a lot less than patience and kindness and like diligence.
And now, don't you think now your task is not to find the ideal wife? The task now is to become the ideal husband.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think that's the framework to continue the podcast, to think about. It's not just how do we find those ideal parishioners and how do we make them. It's more like those of us who are listening, we have a sense of becoming the ideal, or basically the person God has created us to be. To maximize all of the potential the Lord has already given us, and to bring that to life, that he would come to life even more within us, right? Just this is the whole idea of being Christian, is that we don't just follow philosophy, we don't just practice skills and get better at them, but that he becomes more alive. Man fully alive is the glory of God. And so man fully alive is when God is fully alive within me. So that's the ideal parishioner. And I don't have much influence I do have some influence on other people, but what I do have influence is I can become the ideal priest. And how do you even figure that out?
So, that's what I want to ask you. So let's say, concrete obstacle, like for many of us, our lives are so full, we're running so fast that the joy and the peace And those things that attract those who aren't in a relationship with the Lord, those things get sucked right out of us. And for many of us, it's because we're just doing too much. And we're doing too much because we're trying to we're trying to keep the institution afloat. We're trying to be the ideal parishioner. So let me ask you, Father, how do I as a parishioner know when to say yes and when to say no? Right? I know so many people that they're like, oh, nice. How long have you been organizing the craft fair? It's like, well, it was 20 years ago. I was coming out of Mass, and the previous pastor caught me in a moment of weakness, and I've been doing it ever since. So that's probably not great discernment. How do you know if you're supposed to say yes or no to something?
Yeah. Well, we certainly have taken on the warm body mentality, right? That's been sort of our strategic planning. Is there a warm body? We put a mirror up against their nose. Are they breathing? All right, you could be the fourth grade religious ed teacher.
Yeah, you're on the committee.
Yeah, you're in. Congratulations. No, I often heard people say, I did my time. I was on the parish council. I was on finance council.
That sounds like prison. That's what people say.
No, it's so true. I did my time. Now it's time for those younger people to suffer through it like I had to. I don't
know why they don't come.
Yeah, I don't know why young people don't want to be part of our parish. What I highly recommend is first and foremost, get a prayer life. Listen, and it's that awareness. So we talk about self-awareness. Mm-hmm. The more I think about it, I asked Father Dan Andrews once. We were on a ski trip drive once, and we were just talking about what is a leader? What if we were talking about priests and priests becoming leaders? His first words were self-aware, and that's always stuck with me. The first thing you need from any leader, from any person, and I think it's just self-growth, self-knowledge is, am I aware of who I am? Am I aware, not just where am I aware of my gifts? That's all important, but all the things that are kind of moving interiorly. So am I motivated by love or guilt? Even when I used to teach prayer, not that I still teach people how to pray, but I would have formal classes. The first thing I would ask them is, why are you here? That's a stupid sort of everybody starts their classes. Why do you think you're here? Why do you think the Lord? But no, are you here because of guilt? Because you don't think you're good enough at prayer? Or do you have this sense of that God has more for you? That God wants to use this time. He wants to use you, or he wants to love you. That's it. It's not motivated out of anything other than a sense of being called. And so there's a real discernment to that. So to have sort of an interior life of becoming aware of, and so it doesn't mean you have to be like John Paul II lying prostrate on the floor type prayer life. It's just 10, 20 minutes of quieting ourselves before the Lord, or just having a little bit quieter life. I tuned in. I'm a Facebook scroller. I apologize. I confess. Guilty pleasure, right? I complain about it, but I do it. Sorry. I'm so embarrassed. But you all, I'm not the only one.
We'll edit it out. We promise.
But Facebook scroller, and I saw Father, used to be called Father Hannafelt, now Bishop Hannafelt, doing a great interview with the superintendent there from Grand Island. And Father, or Bishop Hannafelt was one of the busiest guys in the world. And even when he was a priest here, just busy. He's just a busy body. And he was just saying, I am so kind of enjoying this because I think it's allowed us all to pause and to be less busy, and we're much more reflective about the things that are important. So for what it's worth, I think we've all been experienced, but also know that many of us are busier than ever, and we really haven't had a chance to pause. I don't care if you got pandemic and things are closed down, or whether it's the normal or the new normal, whichever normal it is. I think we have, because of our fallen human nature, we need to feel like this desire to be busy, because then we're productive, and then we're more human. And there's nothing about being human to be productive. We're human beings, not human doings. And that's a line from Father Hazing that I stole.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, get out of my journal, because I shared this, with some friends, but one of the biggest, I think, grieving moments of this whole pandemic for me has been the recognition that things have not slowed down for me. Now they have a little bit, some youth sports and activities are not there. But what I started to recognize was the speed of my life in many ways is not circumstantial, meaning it's not because of some outside force, it's because of some inside force, right? It's me. And I know for me, as I'm trying to decide what to say yes to and what to say no to, and I'm an extrovert. The key is if I know where the Lord has really called me, where he's drawing me right now, then I have the freedom to say no. But to put it another way, like I can't say no without having a deeper yes. And it's that recognition that, okay, it's time to go be a dad. It's time to wrestle. Or I'm just in a special season right now with toddlers and teenagers, that it's the recognition of that, and it's the embracing of that. It's that yes that lets me say no to a whole bunch of other things that sound fun or that falsely promise me importance or significance. That's a Matthew Kelly line. That's it, right? You can't say no without having a deeper yes. And I refuse to do the Australian accent.
Thank you. Everybody appreciates it.
You're welcome.
Oh, great. Totally failed. I am good at saying no, because I have to believe in it.
I admire that about you.
And I sometimes I joke and I say, well, I'm kind of lazy. So I look at your calendar and I look at my calendar. And I'm your boss and I'm supposed to be the busy one. And, I'm on these leadership teams and committees and priest council. And
you're the smart one.
And I think, well, maybe I'm not working hard enough. Maybe I'm not doing enough. And I feel guilty about not having a full calendar. And then I look at and I honestly, I get jealous of you. I'm like, he's doing so much good work and I'm just sitting here. What am I sitting here? Well, guess what? I'm thinking, I'm reading, I'm studying, I'm praying, I'm talking to certain people. What I'm doing is living out of my strengths.
Yeah.
And
well,
I am wired totally different than you. And
my goodness.
God wants to use me differently than he wants to use you. So comparing yourself to other people is not a good method. That's not a good rule of discernment. Look at St. Ignatius never said, look at the guy, your neighbor, and you should do what he's doing. Either feel guilty or feel proud. That's not a good rule of discernment. It's figure out what you're good at, how you're wired.
Well, right. And I mean, that's part of how do I know when to say yes and when to say no for a particular job at a parish or an opportunity to serve? Well, where am I gifted? I mean, at a certain point, you quoted St. Irenaeus earlier, right? The glory of God is man fully alive. If he did indeed make each of us to play a particular role in the body, and he gifted us accordingly, it should feel good to serve how we're made, right? It's not the only point of discernment, but it is not an insignificant point of discernment to say, do you find joy in this, right? Are you good at this? There's just so many areas, one of which would be logistical organization, that I'm just, it's a real easy no for me, if I'm asked to do that, because it's just not a good fit. But there are a lot of things that I love that. And when you find peace and joy in serving in a particular place, that I think is a really good mark that you're in the right spot.
I liked what you said in our one-on-one the other day. So there's no HIPAA laws for one-on-one manager conversations.
Except for the part where we were talking about my illness. But yeah.
Yeah, that and how you're going to get fired if you keep doing that. No, we don't talk about that. No, you shared, I challenged you to, I just said, sometimes, Jim, I notice that you feel like you need to be part of every meeting. And you got to do this, you got to be there. And I was just challenging you, let your people, and I know you do it. You're a great team leader. So it's, that. And I want to affirm you in that. At the same time, I was just noticing a tendency to why is your calendar so full? And why are you jumping around at all these different things and having to get your feet in everything and your hands? And I'm sitting here thinking, because I often sit there and let that pastor figure that out, or they should have a leadership team and they should be I'm not going to go hold their hands. But I loved what you said, where you said, I'm beginning to recognize that there might be some other meetings. I show up for those meetings. I'm there for 20 minutes. I use my gifts and then I leave. And the way you described it is I listen, I take it all in, because you're strategic. You're building a map. That's your strength, and it is a strength, not just a raw talent. You take it all in. You figure, you kind of see the path. You focus in. That's one of your other strengths. You focus it, and you say very clearly what maybe what the next steps could be, and that helps that team move forward. And then you move on to the next meeting. So I think it's a perfect example how you've learned how to use your strengths in a strategic way, and not be, you've learned how to say no because you're saying yes to how you're created.
Yeah, it's amazing how I get, right? Like self-knowledge is amazingly free. That what you talked about, like freeing, is like, am I saying yes to this because of love or guilt? You know, am I made for this? Does this fit who I am? Am I finding peace and joy? I mean, I think I shared this with you before, but one of the personal disciplines that I do is I keep a stop doing list, and I log all the things that I have said no to, because I go back a week or a month later and I'm like, gosh, it was so hard to say no to that. And then I look at it a week later, I'm like, well, that was easy. Why did I even consider that? Right. So in the moment, I reinforce that. And then there are things that, like, everybody has a to-do list. But when you have a stop doing list, sometimes you can't stop doing things immediately, right? If you're that person and you're listening right to this, live, you're in the podcast, and you're the one who said yes to Father in a moment of weakness, 20 years ago, your pastor, unintentionally guilted you into something, and you said yes, please don't quit like tomorrow. Part of what I have on my stop doing list is there's things that I know I need to stop doing, and I need to kind of plan out my exit strategy. I need to invite someone in and help them learn to do what I'm doing. And part of what I look for is I look for the people like, okay, who would enjoy this? Who's actually good at this? Because there's almost always somebody who's better at it, or at least has the potential to be better at it.
So to get back on topic, we are on topic. I think that's, but to connect it. Let's connect it back to the ideal parishioner is one who knows themselves, is growing in knowledge, but also knowing what God is calling them to, knowing how to use their gifts for the glory of God, coming fully alive in that. So that's where I just wanted to make sure we're connecting that back. Like we just went on a long sort of tangent about life hacks and using Strengths Finder and stuff like that. But it's not. I mean, those are things I think it's. I can't remember if I talked about this last week or if it was something else, but like Strengths Finder is not, or Clifton Strengths as they call it now, is not just some sort of life hack. It is integral to growing in self-awareness of knowing how to serve God in the maximum way.
Right. Well, it's kind of like this. It's kind of like the sociological or psychological equivalent of like knowing your blood type and your vital numbers. There's some science behind, okay, how am I made? How do I tend to think and react? And receiving yourself as a gift, and then being able to give yourself as a gift. I would say one other thing, Father, like in addition to like this ideal parishioner, or again, you can insert parishioner, you can insert volunteer, catechist. Not only are they self-aware, but they're also joining in like the fundamental mission of the organization. And again, for parishes, when we've accidentally collapsed our mission to be all about self-preservation, what we end up doing is raising up consumers. And that's never been, I mean, it's so painful when we see it in ourselves or in our people when we're not happy with what we're getting, and we tend to disengage. But man, the cure for that disengagement is, at least in part, rediscovering our identity. It's like, no, there's this little community we call a parish has a mission, and the ideal parishioner is engaged in that mission, right? They're out and about, because I mean, most priests don't get a chance to show up in the boardroom very often. That's the layperson's job.
Yeah. So what are some tools? I've already talked about Clifton Strengths. And by the way, quite
Hmm.
honestly, I think, well, I don't want to volunteer other people to do this, but if you haven't taken Clifton Strengths, we, as in like the Archdiocese of Omaha, would be happy to not only, well, I don't know if we'd pay for it, it's not that expensive, but we would do your coaching, right? So there's
Hmm.
many of us who are trained, certified Gallup trained coaches. In fact, I did my research certification last night. I passed my test. So I'm
Way to
still
go.
certified. And, yeah, basically, because again, people ask, why are you guys into that strengths thing? Like, what does this have to do with the gospel? Like, because it's so foundational to becoming the person that God is calling you to be. And and there's all kinds of benefits too. So we'd be happy if anybody wants to, you can
Hmm.
message Jen. Who else is on there? Jen, Andy,
Hmm.
Jim, myself. There's a few people else on here. And if I miss you, I'm going to train Tom Crowley how to be a strengths coach here in a little bit,
Hmm.
in a couple weeks. So Whitney also, I'm going to train her up and or do the best I can. But you can, if you kind of know one of these people, you can just message them and say, I would love to learn more about my strengths, and we'll help you. We'll do that for absolutely free. That's what your AAF money and your
Hmm.
parish tax. That's we want to use that to build up the body of Christ in our parishes and in our schools. So happy to
Well,
help you with that.
because it's so vital. I mean, yeah, if we really talk about, everybody's thinking about offertory and cash flow right now, and those things are real, but the most precious resource for any parish are those leaders that are self-aware, that know how they're made, and put themselves at the service of the core mission of the parish, right? That is the making of disciples. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of cool tools.
Yeah. So there's cool tools. So Clifton Strengths is sort of a natural. What are your natural talents? There's
Right.
other things that we're Christians, so we can add on. We can sprinkle a little spirit on there,
Hmm.
and we have something called the charisms. And
Yes.
I'm not as familiar with those. I have never done a workshop, or I mean, I've taken whatever some online $2
Hmm.
tests or something like that. But I always think, what's the difference between like Clifton Strengths and like learning about your charisms? The Clifton Strengths are your natural talents.
Right.
Your
Yep.
charisms are supernatural talents.
Supernatural. And there is a wonderful, those of you who are familiar with Sherry Waddell, of her book, The Forming Intentional Disciples, was just kind of like a landmark book for the new evangelization in the United States. It's still probably the most influential book on that. What most people don't know is her work, before she kind of exploded on the scene as an author, was running the Catherine of Siena Institute, these called and gifted workshops, helping people recognize the particular ways the Lord had gifted them, right? Charism means gift. The charisms that they've been given. And she wrote a book recently, right, called Fruitful Discipleship. It provides kind of an intro. There are a number of workshops and assessments you can do in town. To give a shout out to Charlie Hoover at St. Gerald's. Charlie's a facilitated trainer. A number of
Oh,
parishes through the Archdiocese have done called and gifted workshops. Really a fabulous way to help you start to recognize how you've been made, where the Spirit of God really moves through you in your service.
and it's all about self-knowledge. Again, we haven't even gotten into, we've gotten into a little bit, but it's I always it's the self-knowledge is really the gateway to discernment. And and
Yeah.
and so I want my people to, ideally, I want people to become self-aware. And but also I think they would want me to be self-aware. Like the ideal priest is somebody who's
Yes.
self-aware, how I come off, what I'm good at, what I need to delegate to other people so that we can move things forward.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Jim,
So,
it's we're getting here close to the end. Did you have any comments? Otherwise, I'm gonna bring some questions in here from the chat room.
well, I'll throw out just one other thing for parents. Some of the best parenting advice I ever got was to remember that as a parent, you're trying to raise adults, not kids. I mean, they are kids, and you have to respect their growth and development. But the real goal is to raise them as adults. It's really challenging in the toddler years, really challenging in teenage years. For those who are interested, There's a wonderful resource from a group called Axis, just like the Evil Empire, AXIS, Axis. They provide really, really fantastic resources.
How many reallys? Like really, really, or just really?
I think 3 reallys.
Really, really, really?
Yeah, really, really, really great resources.
Axis? I use Axis for my hair.
Yeah, no, different. Not the AX. Yeah, like the Evil Empire. Only
AXIS, Teen Resources.
Yeah, they have resources for parents, youth ministers, campus ministers, cool conversations kits, topical articles. We'll put a little sample of some of their stuff in the show notes here. And it's really good stuff, which is particularly helpful for, right, I mean, some of our personal mission. It can manifest itself in our careers, in our neighborhoods. But, for many of us, for a season, our personal mission is very much focused on the raising of our children and helping them find their own mission.
Great. Here's a nice conversation from the chat room. Thanks everybody for chatting. There's a conversation going on between Kathy Ashton and Linda Asher. So thank you both of you. But I think Linda, I used to be her pastor, so I understand exactly what she's saying. Some good comments, some positive things, but then she says, the difficulty in our parish is getting parishioners to test the water by trying a ministry to see if they have a gift for it. Even when we offer to accompany them until they feel comfortable, they still balk. How would you help her in that?
Now, I'm assuming these are folks, right, that you're asking them not just to try to experience the ministry, but to begin to lead and serve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a shot here, and this may sound a little a little harsh, but when we have two things done the work of making the experience in a particular ministry transformational, people really want to give back. And then the other, I think, really hard to swallow key in this is, and I don't necessarily mean this literally, but there's got to be term limits. There's got to be term limits on people in leadership. When somebody, for 2 reasons, sometimes people just overstay and they get tired and bitter, and they make the role extremely unattractive, and so then it's nearly impossible to it. It's like, hey, would you like to be tired and cranky? Just like no, yeah, because that's what we've given the impression the role is.
Okay, I get what you're saying. So you're saying, I think I wasn't paying attention the whole time. Just be honest with you, because
that's right. I wasn't either.
I know. You're giving the answer to Linda. You've said is, we have to have term limits for some other ministries, and I don't know if that's going to help her. I think maybe people balk is because they're uncomfortable with themselves, and they might even be uncomfortable with you, and not that they have any good reason. Oh. I would think if you're asking somebody to lead a small group or something like that, more than likely you need an easier on-ramp, which means just have coffee with me and let's hang out and get to know each other and let's pray together. Let's just start there. Like form a relationship. Is that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and here's the scary thing. Some ministries actually some ministries need to come to an end. And sometimes, now I'm saying that loosely, like I'm thinking like craft fair is a ministry, and I'm sorry, I'm not into crafts, but right, I think sometimes certain parish programs and ministries can come to a natural conclusion, and sometimes the tendency is to skip the question. It's like, is this still serving? Is this still changing people's lives?
Yeah, it's a toughie, and I don't know if we have got a solid answer for you, but those are a few things to chew on. Thanks for everybody for listening and participating in this live version of the Equipcast. We record these Equipcasts live every Friday at 3:30 Central Time, so you can go ahead and put that in your placeholder in your calendar and check us out next week, because we will be back next week. And the topic for next week is the top, I don't know how many, top 5 myths of evangelization, What do you think evangelization is? You might have an idea of what you think it is. Maybe your pastor thinks he knows what it's all about. And maybe they fall into these myths. I would think one of them is give me one myth.
What? Oh, the everything is evangelization myth, right? The craft fair. That's our outreach to the community.
All right, one more slam on the craft fair and you're going to get fired.
I'm sorry.
So if you're not able to join us live next week, you can go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Just search Equipcast, one word, on your preferred podcasting platform. If you want to get crazy, leave us a comment. But you don't have to, because we're not going to get rich from this, but maybe it'll help somebody else find what's been helpful to you. You can also find all these show notes at our website, equip.archomaha.org. And that is it. And thanks, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Jim. Well done. Splendid. Super duper. And thanks, everybody, for the chat room comments.